movie review. It's 5 to 7 from 2014, and I watched a brief 10 minutes of this, and I keep thinking about it, so I guess it might be worth a lengthy watch. And it's a love story, a romantic comedy, which is not usually my cup of tea, directed by Victor Levin, who also wrote the screenplay. In the lead role is Anton Yeltsin, who plays Brian Bloom, Berenice Malolo, who plays Ariel Pierpoint, I think she's French, David Shannon plays Jim the doorman, Lambert Wilson is Valerie Pierpoint, I think he's the husband of Ariel, and Amina Robinson plays Governess. And there's a couple of notable people in the cast. Glenn Close, who's got a minor role, just trying to track her down. Sure I saw her, yeah, she plays Arlette Bloom. And another one I spotted, Frank Langella plays Sam Bloom, and Eric Stoltz. Those actors I'm quite familiar with. So it's quite a simple tale. Brian is a writer, but not a very successful one. He's hanging on to get that great phone call to say you're in with regard to his scripts, but he's not been into any that have come near to that. One day he's drawn to this woman on the sidewalk who's standing outside a hotel in downtown Manhattan and seems to be waiting for somebody to light her cigarette, and Brian mischievously decides to respond. And this is the beginning of what leads to their romance. There is a stipulation though, because she's French and she's married, she's only available late afternoons at a specific time to rendezvous, or as we would know it, to get down to it, or get involved in intimate goings-ons, and that's from 5 to 7, aka the name of the title. Okay, it's all pretty straightforward. Brian's parents are in fact Frank Langella, who plays Sam, and Glenn Close, who plays Arlene. After the two meet, where he lights her cigarette and they have a brief sort of small talk, she then leaves, is about to leave, and they're passing words where she says she's here every Friday at this time, leaves you, the viewer, wondering, what is she doing there? Is she a hooker? Or is she just getting a lift? Or why should she be there every week? And then we move on. As we sort of move into the 10th minute of this film, my first thoughts came in. This script is nice, but lacks a bit of bite. And I was just thinking, I wonder what Woody Allen would have done with this scenario, with this situation. He would have certainly made it more jocular, and but nevertheless, it's still got a curios to it. Eventually, we get to understand the title. In France, the woman points out that a 5 to 7 relationship is one outside marriage. It's an affair. Now we know I like the fact that the directors used the two leads to draw out the different cultures, different moral positions, two contrasting perceptions of how humans behave, and this is in many ways an important sort of education for humans, which could and would avoid a huge amount of conflict around the world. Having the ability to be tolerant and accepting of alternative lifestyles, alternative belief systems, and in contrast to what tends to be put across in most countries, of one set of rules, one set of standards, one set of behaviours are acceptable, and if you're outside that, you're somehow viewed as not acceptable, deviant, having no moral fibre, blah 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 blah. Brian takes the high moral ground, trying to convince her that he can't accept this notion of planned adultery, etc., etc., and these different approaches, which I suppose was to be expected as a way of generating some sort of story within this story. And the girl, I'm not using her name because it's a French name and I can't get the pronunciation right. She basically says, well, I can respect your belief system as long as you can accept mine, and that I'll still be around at that time, inviting him to change his mind, well aware that as she's more experienced, 10 years older, blah blah blah, expecting that he will be drawn to her attractiveness, even though she's effectively saying goodbye. She then decides to leave, and before they part with a French sort of kiss to the cheek, she expresses her feelings about the fact that he has said what he believes about not wanting to continue a relationship using her belief system, and she says that she's sad, which reminds us that there are certain cultures that are far more mature than those where I was brought up, where in America particularly this moral question, but it's the moral question that's put on a pedestal, but of course we know in practice is completely ignored. It's like we've got to have our first face to the outside world publicly, and then privately we do what we want. But she's basically taking a public position on an alternative lifestyle, rather than wanting to do it secretly. I like the neat little touches that the director adds in when they meet at her hotel room that she clearly rents, and as they start to become physical, there's some beautiful French music to create the sort of the atmosphere, the tone, little touches. The cultural sort of differences continue with Brian being invited to the home, the family home, meeting the woman's husband and children, and it all being very, very sort of friendly, and he comes into contact with some of the friends that they have, possible links towards helping him with his writing opening, and we then get a taste of different philosophies really regarding the future, taking life one day at a time, appreciating each day as a moment that one wants to be happy rather than striving for things in the future or resolving matters, taking the best from each situation rather than dwelling on the awkwardness, looking at positive aspects to situations that previously may well have been construed as negative, or being objective about them. We get almost a new philosophy laid out in the script, which is being given to Brian, and he is struggling to cope with this, but is trying to restrain in his sort of notion that this can't be right. I think this has got a lot to do with a religion, and particularly the religion as seen in the Protestant faith. 39 minutes in, I've been waiting for this scene. It's the arrival of Brian's parents, Frank Langella and Glenn Close, two giants really of acting talent, and immediately Glenn Close sort of takes over with her entrance and her bad back, and could she have another chair, and it's just a marvellous to see these legends. Then Ariel introduces herself as being married with two children, and we then get a debate post dinner together, where Brian's father is going through the predictable sort of anti-French view of life, the fact that this woman is totally inappropriate for their son because she's married with two children, and slot into typical sort of culture mode amongst most Americans from that generation who have a very conservative view on life. But it's beautifully put together, because this is the world that Brian has come from, and he's now being dragged back into it and being advised that this is the way, and sniping comments about the fact that in World War II the French behaviour was, to say the least, questionable, about how they submitted to Hitler, how they were less than accommodating to Allied troops, I don't know what he was making there, but in contrast to Langara, his wife, of course, has a much more liberal view of this woman and shares feminine things. And so Langara has nobody supported his view. The arrangement is placed in jeopardy when Brian wants more than the arrangement, and L'Oreal is then plunged into sort of uncertainty. Following their separation, honouring the promise to her husband to stay with her kids. There's a sort of caveat after this where the impact and influence of being with those people and the doors that it opened, particularly with regard to his career, comes to fruit as he gets one of his books has been published, and he puts it down to her impact on him, resulting in this success. It's a way of sort of accepting second prize, I guess. Very nice finish. A bit sooky, bit of, everything works out okay in the future, which may not happen in real life, but it's oh, sorry, that's a bit close there. So there we are, 5 to 7.